Hello, my name is Mark Weber. I'm a volunteer working for the Lowell Area Historical Society, or Museum, and the Michigan Military Preservation Society. Today I'll be interviewing Mr. Glen Sironen. Mr. Sironen was born November 22nd, 1923, and currently resides at Cumberland Manor in Lowell. Mr. Jim White will be operating the camera for this interview. Mr. Sironen, what war were you involved in?
World War II.
How did you make your decision as to whether to be drafted or to enlist?
I had no choice. We were all had to register. 18-year-olds, I think. We all had to register, and we were put on either the 4F or the regular Army.
Did you have any opportunity to enlist in a service of your choice, or just were you drafted?
Well, they were getting all kind of enlisted men at that time, but biggest share of us didn't care to enlist.
Why was
We
that?
waited for the draft.
Oh, why was that?
I don't know. You can't really say.
Just the way it was, right?
Having too much fun at home.
Where were you living at the time?
I live in Muskeegon.
Did living in Muskeegon or anywhere else, was part of the community part of your decision to, of course you didn't have much of a decision to go, you had to go, right?
Yeah.
Were most of the people your age going into the service at that time?
Yeah. It was a 100% thing. I mean, all of us, all the kids at that time were going into the service.
When they graduated, was
Yeah.
that it? Did that affect your school any? As a junior, let's say, knowing full well that you were going into the service in a year?
No, not really. I think it just made us want to get a little eager to get into the service. It's not that we wanted to get in, but that's what was happening. Everybody was going.
Okay.
And
Do you recall your first days in the service?
can I recall the first day?
Yeah, what was going on? What were your thoughts and feelings?
Well, after we were inducted, you mean?
Yeah.
And we got inducted, we went to Camp Sheridan, I think it was Illinois. And then we were, I don't know what you call it, but then we were put on trains and sent to different places. We didn't know where we were going, but we did train loads. And we would sit in Chicago for about 6 hours, I think it was. And we ended up down in Georgia. We didn't know where we was headed. But
What type of stuff did you carry with you? You couldn't have had too much.
no, you
What did
didn't
you
carry
have?
only just a few things. I forget what it was, but you didn't even have a bag to carry.
Hmm.
So,
So they just put you on a train and you didn't know where you were going and you
Yeah.
ended up in Georgia. Had you ever been in Georgia before?
nope.
What was, Georgia's a lot different from Michigan. What time of the year was it in Georgia?
This was in April, I think. But it was just, to us, it was awful hot down there. And shrubbery and trees didn't look too good to us. Everything was what do you call it? Pine.
Yeah, the Georgia pine.
Yeah. And we was on Tobacco Road where it was all red sand
Yeah.
and it real hot.
Was it, so it was completely different from what you were normally used to, right?
Completely different, yes.
Was it difficult to adjust to that, or?
No, not really. We were kept busy where we didn't have a chance to realize what was going on, really.
What experiences in boot camp stand out in your mind?
Well, I think myself is everybody still calls me a bugler. And I think that my experiences was that I enjoyed being a bugler. I mean, being a musician that I was, and you blow first call and you get a shoe coming out of the window. And And that was a kind of a saying, but they still did get up, they just yell at me and stuff. But then you have the different calls during the day.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, the way I can see it, we did not use bugles after we got through our basic. Everybody, I think all units used bugling to get their troops into order, you know, into a military mood.
Did you have to, were you responsible for getting up at the right time, or did somebody wake you up, or?
No, I was woke up by the guards. You stood guard duty.
Oh.
That's one thing they had. It was in basic, was guard duty, and the corporal of the guard would wake me up and tell me I have to boom the calls.
What types of things did they have you doing in basic training? What was the training?
What was the basic?
Yeah, what types of things did they have you do in basic?
Like first call, we get up and we all have to run out and line up for reveille. And I don't know whether I should say this or not, but they would have like a short arm inspection and stuff like that. You probably don't know what I was talking about.
No.
Okay. And but we'd have like roll call, make sure everybody got in last night and everybody was present. And after that, they would turn you loose, and you'd have to go and clean up the barracks, clean up the yard, pick up the stuff out in the yard, you know, the cigarette butts and stuff, and make your bunks and stuff, and then they'd have a chow call. Now this is like a daily routine.
How was the food?
Oh, excellent. I can say that I can. Well, obviously I'm a vegetarian, and I had all kinds of help. Every time we got to a chow line, I had lots of buddies because they wanted to get my
Your meat, right?
Yeah, but that was good, real good meat.
Oh, good. How many people were in your barracks during the time that you were in boot camp? I mean,
I would say maybe 30, maybe between 30 and 40 in a barrack. The ones we was in, because they were just only a small one story building, you know.
Do you remember your drill instructors and how you felt you were treated by them?
We was treated well, real well, because they were cavalrymen that came from the 4th Cavalry. That's the officers that trained us, you know, the non-commissioned officers. And they knew the ropes, and we respected them for it, and they were not overbearing, you know. They just worked with us, and we enjoyed it.
Were most of these men World War I veterans?
They're what?
Were most of these men World War I veterans?
No, they were soldiers in the National Guard.
Oh.
And when they took the National Guard in, well, I guess they weren't National Guard either. They were 3rd Cavalry or 4th Cavalry, horse-drawn, horse cavalry.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you feel that your experience in boot camp prepared you for what you would be facing later on in Europe?
Not in boot camp, no. We didn't have only just the basics of marching and we'd have little classes that they would explain things about the military to us. We'd have sing-alongs and just things to boost our morale. And
what kind of things did the guys do? I mean, is there anything that stands out in your mind that was funny or?
Well, the thing that stands in my mind is the crap games.
Were there a lot of crap games?
Them crap games that go all night long in the latrines, and but to say what might have went on is it just everybody was just you know, knew they had a schedule to follow, and we had to go to bed when we were supposed to. And
what were you being paid? Do you remember?
being paid?
Yeah.
I haven't got it. It's on my record, but I don't know what I getting paid, wasn't much. It wasn't much.
Do you remember approximately how much it was?
No, not unless I looked at mine.
Okay. After you left boot camp, where did you go?
Well, we stayed right there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we was, like I say, we was first, the 3rd Cavalry mechanized, and then they changed us to 3rd Cavalry, oh, I don't know, anyhow, we were 3rd Cavalry mechanized, yeah, and we were changed to 2 squadrons. Half of us was one squadron, the other half the other, and they had the 3rd and the 43rd. Now that was a cavalry unit in World War II. Just two units like that, 3rd and 43rd.
Now, are you at this point getting any training as far as how to operate tanks?
Right after basic, not during basic.
Right.
Basic, you were quarantined, and you were given all kinds of shots and dental work and all that kind of stuff to get your health back in.
Yeah.
But after basic, then you started specializing in your vehicles.
When did you find out that you would be operating a tank?
Right after basic.
Right after basic, they just told
Well,
you
you
that?
take tests, you know.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, and you had to pass the test in order to get permission or license, you might say, to run to that.
Were you glad about that? I mean, were you happy about your assignment?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it stayed right with it. I mean, every day you had to do your thing.
Had you ever driven a large equipment like that before?
No.
So this was your first
I
time?
drove a car, but that was it.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so, how long did you spend still there in the boot camp, or were you now in Tennessee?
Well, we trained in a boot camp until we were ready to drive them vehicles. We got on road columns and what do you call it? I can't think of what the name of it was. Convoys.
Convoys, yeah.
We'd go around, we'd drive around on convoy until we really got used to our unit, our vehicle, and then they decided we'd go to maneuvers. After a lot of training going on with that too, but after we got into maneuvers, we didn't have much to do because of cavalry, but we was in mud and snow and rain, and I think that's what they were training us for.
And where were you? Where was this?
Yeah, Tennessee.
In Tennessee.
Yeah.
What were your accommodations? Where were you quartered in Tennessee?
Well,
You lived where? And
oh, we lived out. We had to live out in our pup tents and things like that.
And this is if there's cold and snow, so it must have been pretty uncomfortable at times.
It was quite muddy.
How long were you there in Tennessee?
I forget it. It must have been a couple of months probably at a time. We were there twice, and it seemed like it was probably a couple of months that we was on maneuvers.
What was your particular job on the tank?
I was a driver.
Now, by the time you left training, did you feel pretty comfortable driving the tank?
Oh yeah, yeah. But I was like I told you again. I was a bugler, and a bugler is a messenger. In combat, he's a messenger. So I was actually a tank driver and a messenger too, and I would take the Jeep lots of times, have to drive a Jeep and drive the commanding officer back to the rear echelon for meetings and stuff, and then bring him back and when I wasn't driving the tank. So.
So you had to go back there twice. Now, once you were finished with your tank training, where did you go? I mean, your maneuvers.
No, we went back to Camp Gordon.
Okay.
And had to just get prepared to go overseas.
Okay.
And we were given like weekend passes, and a lot of people were given furloughs and stuff like that, because we had finished our training. And after that was done, then we all ended up in, half of our unit ended up in Boston. And the other half, we was the 43rd, we ended up in Boston. And the 3rd ended up in New York, and just before we went overseas.
What types of things did you do in Boston? Now, we have somebody, how old were you at this time?
How old?
Yeah.
18 or 19, whatever.
Okay, you're 18 or 19 years old, you know you're gonna be going overseas. You have, I'm assuming you had leave time in Boston?
Yeah.
What kind of things did you do?
Oh, just go sightseeing, I guess. Go to dances and things like that. They had a lot of things going on at the service did. And in other words, the people at home had, not KP, but service clubs and things like that we'd visit.
Did you feel that the population, the general population in the country was very supportive of your effort?
Yes, they were.
Well, how did that come out? I mean, what did that look like to you? And what kinds of things were going on?
Well, it looked like we had a war to win. I mean, we had a job to do. And I think that's what was on most everybody's mind. And I know it was on mine. I mean, I wasn't trying to get out of going to the service or nothing. That's the way they were getting. That's what you had to do.
Did you think much about what you would be facing? Now, still in Boston, did you think much about what you'd be facing when you went overseas?
Well, the only thing is, you think of war, you think of death. So you don't really let that put you down.
You were feeling ready to go, you felt prepared, and you were ready.
Yeah.
How did you get to Europe?
We went on a boat.
Had
Not a
you,
rowboat either.
can you describe the boat? What kind of boat
The
it
boat
was?
was the Aquitania.
Uh-huh.
And somebody asked me, was it you that asked me? Is it sister to the Lusitania? Yeah, I don't know. I still haven't found out, but it might be, because it was a British ship.
It had a ship. It had a sister ship. I don't remember which one it
I
was.
remember the Lusitania.
Yeah. What were your first feelings as you looked at this ship that was going to take you across Europe or into Europe?
Well, it looked big. It's real big.
How many? Oh, go on. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't forget what I was going to say now. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know what your feelings were. I mean, here's the ship that's going to take you across. It's a big ocean. There are submarines out there, that type of thing. Were you thinking about any of that, or?
Yeah, there was danger of it, and but there's nothing you can do about it. Somebody else is like getting in the car and riding with somebody. It's their duty to get you there. So,
Yeah.
but seeing the after action reports, the Navy and Air Force had cleared the Middle Atlantic, and the Middle Atlantic was not dangerous anymore. Whereas before there was a lot of U-boats sinking boats.
So they cleared that whole area, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
I
interesting.
didn't either.
How many men do you think were aboard that ship as you went from the United States to Europe?
I don't know. Could be around 20,000 maybe, something like that.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Where did you sleep?
Where we can find a sleep.
Did you have any assigned sleeping area?
No, not really. Had an area, yeah, but no.
No place in the area.
I don't remember where I even slept.
So would you just throw a sleeping bag on the floor and sleep?
It could be. We didn't have sleeping bags in them days.
Oh, you just slept on the floor.
So I don't know. It could have been.
What about the food? How did you, with that, the ship wasn't probably made to feed that many.
Like I said, the food was good until we got over to Glasgow, and they fed our troops. And I don't eat meat, so they fed our troops stewed kidneys, and our boys all got the GIs, And they held us on the boat for 2 days until they cleared it out, and that's all I knew about that.
You're paid to be a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Did you hit any rough sea out at sea in making the crossing?
No, I don't remember of any rough seas.
So there weren't too many people getting sick or anything
No.
like that as they
I
went
spent a
across?
lot of time down in the music room, where I could play records, and that's with the big bands, and I'm like Sammy Kay, and it's a Sunday thing program. But I think everything was pretty smooth. We didn't have too many problems.
Did you think about home and the war and all that kind of thing as you were going across? Since you had so much time?
Yeah, no, just like writing home, and that's it.
Uh-huh. Did, when you got to Europe, you landed in Glasgow, you said, in Scotland?
Yeah.
What happened then? What was the next thing you had to do?
Well, after we got off the boat, we was headed in train to down towards England. I think it was Manchester. I'm not somewhere down that way. But we didn't get to London. They had the buzz bombs were bombing London, so we never got down that way. But we enjoyed passing all the that we passing all the people that were waving at us coming down through Scotland. They were real friendly and real a lot of help, you know, to the guys, and it was really a lot of help.
So you were greeted as kind of heroes.
What's that?
You were greeted as heroes
Yeah.
by the
Yes.
British. Explain. Well, where did you sleep, stay while you were in England? Were you still in a tent, or?
Well, no, huh? When we was down, when we got down to lower England, we were put into tent cities, and we're the little city that's, I don't know, today we call them a butler building or something like that.
Oh.
And it's a half metal building, but it's covered with tarp. And that's the kind of places we stayed until we were, and we weren't held very long. We were sent on the boats and across the channel.
How long after the invasion of Normandy did you cross the channel?
I don't remember the Normandy invasion, but we landed on France the first day of August.
Okay.
And that's where our unit ended up.
Do you remember where in France you landed?
Near Avranches.
Okay. Was there anything left of the original invasion when you got there?
Any what?
Was there anything left, like destroyed equipment or whatnot, on the beach?
No, pretty well cleaned up. Everything was pretty well cleaned up, and we were told that the Third Army was getting ready to move in, so that we just more or less sit, and it wasn't only a couple of days, and they committed the Third Army to the battle zone.
And this was Patton?
Yeah.
What was the exact mission or assigned mission of your unit? You were supposed to do what?
Well, the cavalry, we were recon. I reconnoitered the area and keep in contact with the enemy. But don't fight if you don't have to. And the way that we are tanks, our tanks were there to help get our jeeps and armored cars and stuff out of trouble if they did get pinned down by the enemy.
So basically, you were in continual touch where some of the other people coming, they would go to the front and back and forth, but you
Yeah.
were always out there.
Yeah, we'd go out there, and if we would hit something, we'd back up and go off to the flank and let the armor division come through. And the armor division was the people that were doing the pushing.
Uh-huh.
But we were known as Patton's ghost troops because they never knew where we was at. and the Germans just were scared of us. And it'd be fun. It's funny to read the reports on it, how we did scare the German armies.
Did you ever see Patton?
Oh yes, he was with us. That's why we respected him. It wasn't beyond him to not go out there in front with us.
How many times do you think you saw him? Or was he with you a lot?
Oh, I can't see. I remember seeing him in Luxembourg, and I remember seeing him in. I don't know whether I'd seen him in France or not, but.
What were the men's attitudes toward Patton? Did they like him?
They all respected him. Yep.
Could you explain a little bit about how a tank, or your tank was operated? How many men were part of the crew? How many?
There was 5 of us in one tank. Now this is the light M5.
Yeah.
And I was the driver, and then there's assistant driver sits next to me on my right, and then you got the gunner. He sits up just above my shoulders, and tank commander, and I think the later tank had a loader, a guy that would load the gun.
What kind of weapons did you have on board that tank?
Oh, we had what's called a grease gun. All of us guys, the individual, had what we call a little grease gun or a little carbine, small rifle.
So you could shoot out of some port in the tank, right?
If we had to, yeah.
What about, did you have a cannon on it, or of any kind?
Yeah, I had 37 millimeter on the first ones, but I can't think of what it was on the second one. We had M5s at first, then we went to T-24s, and that was a test. The T stood for test, and I can't remember what the gun was on that. I can't think, it was a 57 or something like that, millimeter. And,
Did you figure that was enough armament for your job as a reconnaissance group?
Yeah, I do.
Could you see, I mean, as the operator or the driver of the tank, could you see real well where you were going?
Well, I had periscope to look out, and that was the only thing I could really see straight ahead.
Okay.
And
Did that ever become a problem?
It was turnable, but if you turned it, you lost your direction where you was going. So, no, it was just directional. Is about what it was.
Do you? How did you steer the tank?
Like you do a tractor or a bulldozer.
So you pull back on one
Yeah.
set of drive cleats and
Yeah.
forward on the other?
We had 2 Cadillac engines in there, one on each side.
Okay. Did the tank ever break down?
A lot of times.
Who was responsible for fixing it?
I was. But no, it was up to us to make sure that all of the greases, everything was greased and everything was in order, and oil was changed, but just normal breakdowns, you didn't have that many. You had a lot of enemy fire that would break them down. But
Did you see any combat?
see any combat?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the first day I went there to the day I come home.
What were your feelings that first day when you were involved in a combat situation?
I was scared. The first day we went in, our column moves to the center of a little town, and the first tank in the line got blown right out of service and killed the driver and the assistant driver. And we went back a couple of days later. The French people had covered that tank with all kinds of flowers, and that made you realize you was in war.
Real quickly.
Yep.
And after that, it became pretty much a daily occurrence that you were involved in some form of combat interaction?
You don't have to watch your tail.
What's it like, the stresses of prolonged battle like that? Because you didn't have much of a chance to go back for R&R. You were out there the whole time. How do you get feeling? Get feeling tired, or how do you get feeling after a
I
while?
still am.
Still are. Yeah, I can see that. How are your basic needs met? Like sleeping, where did you sleep?
Well, when we moved into a town, we went from town to town. And normally we didn't go on the roads, we went across the country. But when we jumped or got into the towns, we'd have to move the people out and send them over to a certain house or something in the town where they would have to stay, and we would take over and we'd sleep where we could.
What about food? Did you have to prepare? I mean, did you have rations? Is that it?
No, the government furnished our food.
I know, but what was the food? I mean, did somebody prepare it, or were you eating rations?
What's that say?
Did somebody prepare it? Was there a mess hall, or?
Oh, well, we had service trucks, moved a truck with us, but if we were where we weren't being bothered, they could cook the meals for us. Otherwise, we had to eat K rations or C rations.
Could you explain K rations and C rations, what those were like? Can you explain C rations and K rations, what those were like?
Well, K ration was like you get prepared food, like a can of bacon. You get a regular can of bacon and different things like that, jelly. You'd have a can of jelly and all kinds of, it's like a prepared meal. Whereas the C ration was nothing but a cracker and a hunk of cheese or something in a box enough to keep your, maybe a candy bar that's made out of prunes or something. That was your meal. But that's what the poor GIs got them.
And I suppose the latrines were something you made on your way, right?
Yeah.
How did you eat on the tank? I mean, you must have spent a lot of time in the tank. I mean, did you eat while you were in motion?
Oh no, we'd stop.
Was there anything special you did for good luck?
Any what?
Anything special for good luck? I don't know, rabbit's foot or something like that?
Not for me, it wasn't. It's just not, a lot of the guys, I don't know, maybe they carried the rabbit's foot or something, I didn't.
Okay. Was there any chance, I mean, were you constantly engaged, or did you have time to entertain yourselves in slack periods of time? Like when you were sleeping or just before you guys went to bed? I mean, did you play cards or something like that?
No. I think you were on the alert all the time, is that I can say.
Was it pretty common when you were sleeping at night, you said you'd get into some sort of cover somehow to hear rounds coming over you or around you?
Oh yeah, it would. And then end up in a, well, we always said if you can hear it, it's past you already. And you won't hear the one that hits you. And Did
that keep you awake a lot? I mean, did you ever get used to?
Yes, he kept. I'll tell you, we'd like to sleep in barns, but when you sleep in the barn in the haystack, you don't know what's going to come in that barn.
It's true. Yeah.
And that's the way the Germans like to shoot, is in the barns and stuff.
Oh.
But
what was the worst and the most intense fighting you encountered in France?
what?
The most intense fighting, the hardest fighting that you had to deal with in France?
I would say when we first went over, we had hedgerows, and them hedgerows, I don't know if you know what a hedgerow is.
Yeah. Why don't you explain what a hedgerow is?
Is nothing but a row after row of hedges, and you can't hardly drive a tank through them. You can't hardly get through them at all. And that's where we had a hard time of digging the Germans out. But
how did you dig them out? Just push them out?
well, they were beginning to go on the move. When we got over there, they were beginning to move out, and there was nothing to hear at night hear vehicles moving and this and that, and you know it was the German vehicles. But to try to dig them out, I mean, it wasn't, we couldn't do much about them. They set during the daytime. And
Did you ever encounter what was left of the old French Maginot Line?
oh yes, we had a battle at Metz when we started to go over to Metz. Our mission was to take Metz, but we didn't know what we were running into when we got to Metz. That was a fortified town. They had tunnels that go from one end of that. I don't know how far them tunnels went, all over the place underneath the ground. And we had quite a battle. The Third Army had quite a battle to get Metz taken, but they did it.
So this was what was left of the old French Maginot Line,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So the Germans used it against the American
Yes,
troops,
they did.
basically.
And then, and after that come the Siegfried Line, Dragon's Teeth.
You want to explain that?
It's like a dragon's teeth, a bunch of pedestals sticking up in the air that you can't drive a tank over. You can't even drive a Jeep through them or nothing. The only thing you do is just take them with the infantry. They had to be with people with.
So they kept the tanks out of there, right?
Yeah.
How were you able to navigate through France and Germany? I mean, how'd you know where you were, and who was in charge of that?
We had maps. We had maps that we could that they kept us informed with, and you had the Stars and Stripes paper. That was a newspaper over there, and they did pass that out. You had a good idea where you're at and how the war was going.
Do you think it was pretty accurate?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
Did your unit or group take many casualties?
In a group to take.
Your tank group, your forward, your reconnaissance group.
Yeah.
Were there quite a few casualties in that?
Oh yeah.
How do you deal with that on the battlefield? I mean, if you see a lot of casualties, if you don't mind my asking.
You don't stick around, but the medics come up and take care of all that. You had big medical groups.
Mhm.
They would pick all the soldiers up, and if they were hurt, or if they weren't hurt, or if they were killed or anything, you know. But the medics were good people.
So you felt that the soldiers were pretty well covered with medical care should they get injured, or?
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do.
How were you treated by the French? You said that in some of the cities
Oh,
they...
yes, they treated us like kings and queens, and they just tried to help us in any way they could. And if we eliminated them, eliminated the town, you know, they would put the flags up and everything else, American flags, and we knew that we was welcome to come in.
Wow. How were you treated in Germany?
About the same way. Germans were not hostile to us at all. But you couldn't trust them because you didn't know. You take German soldiers would get out of the uniform and be in civilian clothes, and you're just taking a chance on what's going on in there. But we were not allowed to fraternize with any people at all.
Was that the reason?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't tell who might be...
Yeah.
Yeah. As a result of you being the forward unit or in the forward units, did you come across any of the concentration camps?
Yes, we come across some, but we bypassed them more than the other people that coming up behind us, because we weren't allowed to stop. We had to keep going, keep contact with the enemy. But we did run up on the concentration camps.
So you were still busy fighting the war, and so you
Oh, yeah.
continued, and I'm assuming then they did what? Attached other groups to the
Yeah.
concentration camps?
Oh, we had task force that were, well, like ours was called Task Force Group, Polk, and we we were like a small army in itself, just driving, spearheading where it could as far as it could go. And it got to be where we wasn't even meeting any enemy. We were just going down the roads of wild, you know.
Mhm. So at that point in time, did you figure the war was over?
Yeah, yeah,
And you pretty well knew it then, eh?
yeah.
Where were you and what were your thoughts when you found out the war in Europe was actually over, that the Germans had surrendered?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we just felt good that it was over. I think we had the feeling it was over before we ever got that far.
Yeah.
And because we was coming across, it would be nothing to come across a whole parade of prisoners, you know, coming up and giving up, and
Once you got into Germany, were the German towns you went through pretty well destroyed?
yeah.
And who did that? I mean, how did that happen? Was it the artillery or the Air Force? Or?
Oh, I really don't know. I think it was our bombers, our bombing that ruined them cities. Because
They were pretty well destroyed.
yeah, there weren't any streets in them that you could really drive down and call.
So those cities really took a pounding before.
Yeah.
Well, after the European campaign was over, where did you go? Where were you sent?
Well, General Patton talked to us. He says that you're a good outfit. He said, I'm going to send you over to Japan. by way of the United States. So we all got furloughed, came home and got furloughed, and we was getting ready to head for Japan when the war ended.
What were your feelings about having to go now to Japan, if the war ended? I mean, you were a while where you didn't know that the war was going to end, and you were ready to go to Japan. What were your feelings about doing that?
Oh, it was kind of. It wasn't a real good feeling. I can't say that. I mean, it was. Here we go again. You know.
You'd had enough.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about the atom bomb before
No.
it was dropped? It was a complete surprise.
No, that was a complete surprise to me.
How did you find out, and where were you, and what were your thoughts when it was dropped?
I was at Camp Grant, Illinois, coming back from my furlough, and when they announced that the war was over, that Japan had surrendered.
Okay, so was there a feeling of relief there?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
In fact, I think a lot of us took off and went home.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. I think it's on my record that I had a couple of days that I was gone.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
The only citations we got was I got 5 bronze stars to put on my ribbon, and that's from the ETO.
Can you explain the bronze stars and
Well,
what they signified?
yes, it's for the Ardennes, for the Moselle, France, and Germany, I believe, and we were decorated for that.
So you got a bronze star for each of the campaigns you were involved in. Do you have any photographs? Excuse me. Do you have any of those medals that we can see?
Any medals?
Yeah, I mean they're your bronze stars.
They're on the strip up there. But
Okay, maybe you could show us. Can you explain to us what you have there? I mean, I see a picture of you and you have your ribbons and so forth. Can you explain?
this is the thing my daughter had made,
Oh,
a Christmas present. And there's a dish in there that she got. But then there's my ribbons, my 20th Corps patch.
okay. Which one is your 20th Corps patch? Can you
The
see?
one
You can
with
move
two
it back a
X's.
little bit, maybe,
The 2
so you
X's.
can see it.
There's the 3rd. Oop. Can I put it over here? Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine. That'll work.
There's the 20th Corps patch down there.
Okay.
2 X's. Here's the 3rd Army patch.
And above that are your dog tags?
Yep. One of my dog tags.
One of them. And your ribbon there for the 4 or 5, was it 5 campaigns you were in?
4, there's 4, but they could only put 3 on the strip.
Oh, they couldn't? So what happened to the 4th one then? You just didn't get it?
It's still on my discharge.
Oh, I see, okay.
I'm allowed to have 4.
Okay, what's this down on the bottom left?
Over here?
Yeah.
That's sand from Verdun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And on the bottom right is young Glen Sironen?
Yeah. There's my tank right there.
Oh, okay. Mr. Sironen has gathered together some patches here from the World War II era. Mr. Sironen, you want to explain to us a few of those patches?
Yeah, well, here's my 2nd Army patch. This is what we trained, this is the army we trained in over here. And then, these are tank destroyers. And here's the 12th Corps patch. That's the patch we had before we got the 20th Corps patch. And then there's the 3rd Army patch in here, 3rd Corps patch. Way over on the far side. Here's the 3rd Corps patch. That was, we wore all them while we was in training. We all ended up with that 3rd Army patch after we got overseas. But these other ones here are in armored divisions. And we worked with a lot of them armored divisions. Here's my 20th Corps patch here.
Mm-hmm. What is the one that says Italy there? I mean, it was,
I don't know, it's,
did they actually give an Italy pass if you were there, or?
well, see, I don't know where I picked up a lot of these at.
Huh?
I could have picked them up when we was en route or someplace.
Yeah. Well,
See,
that's
we
fine.
was like I say, down in the Austrian Alps. And I could have picked it up down there, but it was from Italy.
Was that the first time you saw large mountains?
Oh no, I had seen the mountains before.
Okay. How did you stay in touch with your family while you were in the service?
Well, I wrote back and forth. We got regular letters from the family.
Even out on your mobile unit, you got
Oh, yeah.
regular letters?
They had, what do you call it, email? Not email,
No,
it's,
that's later.
yeah,
I don't know, war mail of some kind.
yeah.
Were you writing?
V-mail.
V-mail, okay. So they made sure you got your mail
Oh, yeah.
on time.
Right.
Were you writing a girlfriend at that time?
Yeah, my wife.
She was back in the States, of course.
Oh,
How
yeah.
often did you get letters from her?
Oh, maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
Were you as good writing her?
Yeah, well, I'm not that good. Didn't have that much time, but
Do you have a picture of your wife from that time?
Yeah.
Pretty close to it?
I do. You know, she, I got a picture of her in my tank too.
Oh, okay, we'd like to see both. Here, just hold it up and we'll try and get a picture of it. Mr. Sironen, who are we seeing here? This is a picture of,
My girlfriend at that time, my wife, no.
did it mean a lot to you that she wrote to you?
Yes.
I mean, how soon after your return from service did you and your wife get married?
Oh, in a couple of months, I would say.
Where were you when your service ended? I mean, how did your service end?
We ended up in the Austrian Alps, and then we stacked our tanks on a boat or on rail cars, and then we came up to it. We left it. It was a Camp Lucky Strike up in the northern part of France. Straight over to oh, was it? I can't think of the name of the port we came in.
Now, at this time, are you moving by train?
No, we're moving by boat. After
Okay.
we got Lucky Strike, we boarded the boats.
What did you do after your term of service? You're out of the service now. Well, what did you do?
Well, I tried to take up a, what do you call it? Into the sheet metal trade, which my dad and 3 brothers were in.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the military in general? Any?
No, it didn't ruin it. I respect it.
Did your service and experiences in the service affect your life any?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I kind of fell behind on my education.
Okay. Did it affect your family life any? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, well, I was kind of poor, in other words, poor and had no real job, you know. And the hourly wage was way down, $1.35 or something. I don't know what it was,
Yeah.
but it was hard getting started.
Yeah. You said earlier in the interview that you're still being somewhat affected by your experience in the service. Could you explain how that played out in your life?
Well, I would rather not say.
That's fine. That's fine. But it still was it? Is it? You said it was still an issue in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add as part of this interview that we haven't covered?
Yes, and that was the part that the women played.
Okay, could you tell us about that?
I'd say that the women, without this, without the women being over here, we'd never won the war. It took them at home.
They were building planes and guns and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
They did play. It was the women that built war machinery. There's
That's
no doubt
right.
about it. Were you?
You know Rosie the Riveter.
Sure. My mother was a Rosie the Riveter.
Yep.
So it was a complete effort. What else was going on back home to support the war effort?
I think everybody was supporting it. I mean, you couldn't buy tires for your car because all the rubber was being used for war. And,
What else couldn't you buy?
huh?
What else couldn't you buy? You couldn't buy tires. You couldn't buy.
Oh, you couldn't buy everything was rationed, yeah.
Could you explain how that rationing worked?
Well, no, I can't really.
I mean, what was rationed? Let's see, gas was rationed,
Oh, yeah, gas and everything else was rationed like that. but-
meat was rationed,
And, what was rationed?
meat,
Oh, yeah.
but everybody played a role.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they did.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview here?
No, I think that, I think this was a whole country, what do you call it?
Behind the effort.
Yeah, whole country effort, and I think that we haven't seen that since.
No.
And you had to be there to realize it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to do this interview and appreciate your taking part in it. We'd also, we'd like to introduce your friend next to you here. Do you want to introduce him?
Give him a bark. He's sleeping.
We put him
Give
to
a
sleep,
bark.
eh?
Give a bark.
How long have you had him?
Almost a year. He's just a young pup.
What's his name again?
Gizzy.
Gizzy.
Gizmo.
Oh, Gizmo, okay.
He's a great grandson of his grandfather.